Welcome into the Full 90, everyone. Kia ora. We are back. It's our second podcast in the first week of lockdown. Doing all we can, really, Heidi, to make sure that we've got content for people. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this one. This one caused a bit of a kerfuffle online. Twitter blew up. So we are very fortunate this evening to have Nick Waldron, a refereeing supreme from what do you coach there, Nick? I was refereed. Is it
whereabouts?
Yeah. What have you done? You've done NRFL. You've done
a bit of NRFL probably for the last 17 years. I think that's older than some of the players that are playing on that league at the moment. But did that. Been on the Premiership now for about 14 years. Bit of A-League, bit of VARing. Done a lot of travel around the world. So
under 17 World Cups. Under 20 World Cups?
Yeah, I've done 2 under-17s.
Saudi Professional League?
Yep, Saudi Professional League. Yeah.
Indian
went over
Super
and did an
League.
exchange in Switzerland and France. That was pretty cool.
Wow. All right. So there you go. There's a little bit of an insight off the bat there. Of course, we've also got Heidi here as per usual. So welcome in, Heidi.
Oh, thanks, mate. I was just wondering whether you're allowed to use the word kerfuffle in 2020.
What's wrong with kerfuffle?
It's right up there, mate. So,
Mark, you care to explain why kerfuffle's an issue?
Well, I think you can order a kerfuffle on Courtney Place.
Turkish food.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I think we're still allowed to use the word kerfuffle. Can I just say, Nick, you're well qualified to answer all our questions after hearing that rundown of places and things you've seen.
Absolutely.
I don't define a kerfuffle, so...
Well, mate, you didn't always referee, and you actually played at a fairly decent level. So do you want to take us through the background, first of all, about where you played and at what level you played, then also why, unfortunately, you got into refereeing?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Apart from the unfortunate part, because it was the best move ever.
I'm talking about your knee. I've heard bad things about your knee. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, I played through the grades. I played a bit of Auckland reps and stuff. I was in the same sort of year group as Mully and Pritch, so we played together a lot. That made the transition to refereeing fantastic when I got to referee them as well, because they were always there to give me lots of advice. But I busted my knee. I tore my medial meniscus a couple of times when I was, I think, initially 14 or 15. So I had a couple operations on that. It wasn't really getting right.
Was that a tackle, or was that just like one of those ones where nothing happens and you just go over on it?
I remember I was playing for a club. I don't really want to say that club, but it was Central. And I jumped at a player. We were losing in a cup game or something. I jumped at a player to kick him, and my knee got a bit caught and tore out the side. So it wasn't too pleasant. But that I was quite young. I was probably about 16, I think, when that initially happened, and then that sort of put an end after a couple operations. I stopped playing when I was about 20 and took up refereeing about 21. And I think I refereed my first season on the Northern Premier League was when I was 22. I'd say it was pre 2003. But back in that day, Heidi, you were probably playing, yeah?
Yeah, yep, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah. But Chris Jackson was playing. I remember refereeing him quite a bit. It's a wee bit different, chasing him around. So.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. So
you axed yourself. During a particularly aggressive tackle because you were down. How have you managed to compartmentalise being that person who would go in for a heavy tackle when you were down to, say, making referee calls straight off the bat? Like, that's a massive flow.
Now I can,
player.
Just, feel the players' frustrations. I had my own, so...
Makes sense.
So, Nick, how did you, when you transitioned to be a referee, I mean, for me as a player for so many years, you guys live in your own little culture bubble. It must be really difficult. You've got your own changing rooms. After the matches in New Zealand, particularly at that kind of amateur level, at Northern level, and even at Premiership level, you come up to the changing room after the game. You can't really have a beer with anyone, can you? Because if you go and drink with the home team, you're perceived to be on their side, and you drink with these guys. How is that transition from being in a team environment sport where you're part of the changing room environment and the banter, and then suddenly there's only really a team of 3 of you? How does that kind of sit?
Yeah, when you've been playing with Mully and Pritch and you have to referee them.
Particularly after I sent off Mully for a handball, I remember that. He wasn't too keen to have a beer with me.
When was that, by the way, before you get into your answer?
What's that?
When was that one? Was that when he was 17, or was that when he came back?
It was when he came back. when he came back from England. It was a handball on the goal line at the far end. He was playing for Auckland City. He still disputes it.
When was that? I can't even remember that.
It was
one.
probably because
Anyway,
Jacob was supposed to be goalie and missed it.
Yeah, it was a good. Yeah. So anyway, the beer in the club rooms after, mate. How do you?
Yeah. So look, I mean, referees are a team as well. So we train together once or twice a week. So there is that camaraderie. But I get your point on match day. There's only 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 if there's an assessor there as well. So look, I'm always keen to head up to the club rooms, even if my assistant referees aren't. I think I was at Forest Hall the other week, and I just cruised on up by myself and stood in the corner. And usually someone feels sorry for you eventually, and Spoons or Dicko or someone came over. So
I think that's the point I was trying to make. I always felt sorry for the refs because, like, usually you got your own table or something, and it's part of the game for me that's a little bit wrong. Like, I mean, I guess having played that many games now, I look at it and I try to look at it as a wider football community that we really do kind of stick the refs in the corner, and it can't be that nice a place to be because, good referees are brilliant to have in the games.
Absolutely.
Yet we don't treat them with any respect after the match.
Well,
I've yet to hear many coaches after the game say the ref had a brilliant match today, let both sides play. Someone's always
been in my games, Heidi.
I've been in plenty of your games, and look, I was always happy to see your name on the team sheet. But there are definitely points where, as a player, we've seen refs listed and gone, oh God. Have you ever had teams or players in the past where you've got your duties for the weekend and looked at the team and players and gone, oh crap, I'm off to so and so? Has there been a team or players in the past where you've thought that?
Never crap. It's more like, okay, well, these are the players. I'll always look at the team list. I'll assess how the teams are going to play. So I think I can move better to be in better positions. Whether they're just going to, they're going to keep it around the back and then try and move it through the middle or something, or go long, then you kind of have to be on your bike a bit quicker. And that's part of our preparation is looking at how they'll play. The second part to your question is you always look at the players, so you know who's going to be running at you, who's going to be challenging you, who's likely to, if there's some history, maybe the players have moved clubs, what happened in the previous match. So you're always looking at that and preparing for that, to make sure you can get. The aim is always to get the big decisions right, and if that big decision is between 2 players, then that's the focus for any referee, I think.
I think your answer then will be well received by some people who are listening, because I don't think people get just how much effort and time referees put into the matches that they have to do. I mean, you just summed it up really well there. I doubt there'd be many players out there in the Northern Premier League thinking that the ref has actually studied the style of play or the players involved or recent transfers or derby matches. And I think that's where I'm trying to say, I don't think you guys get enough credit. So, loved your answer there. That was brilliant.
Yeah, did you get that from Kalina, Nick? Because I heard Kalina used to study tactics, and then he would understand that tactics would influence a game, and included in tactics, you'd nullify an opposition, which might be done through persistent fouling. So he would look at teams and look at how they approach the game and try to referee, not necessarily based on that, but definitely as a reflection of the nuance that they brought.
Yep. I mean, look, he's now the FIFA referee chair, RefCo chair. So, I mean, he's certainly influencing us. When he refereed the 2002 World Cup final, there's quite a few videos of him talking about exactly that, watching videos and videos and videos, because back in those days, there wasn't, little YouTube clips that you could watch. So information's always to hand now. So if I travel somewhere, you can find information easily on any team. Like when I was in Brazil recently, I had to research Tajikistan and Cameroon. But there's so much information on YouTube that you can get. We can look to see who's the top goal scorer. We can see, you can find all that information to help you prepare better.
Nick, out of curiosity, as you talk about the players who come and challenge you and stuff like that, I'm a fan of a lot of different sports, and I would say other than WWE wrestling, you guys as referees are in the firing line more than any other referees that there are. There is
WWE is not a sport, Mark.
Well, it's still debatable. I'm still believing. But what I'm saying is that those players come right up to your face and they challenge you. In other sports, the organisations protect referees from that happening. Are you at any stage, do you ever think to yourself, man, it would be nice if actually there was some ruling where these players took what I had to say and backed off because I'm the man in charge?
Oh, look, I think the best thing about the sport that we all love is it's passionate. So, people are going to be passionate on the pitch, and I have no qualms with any player questioning or asking me why. Because if they ask me in the right manner, then of course I'm going to respond. I'll always give them a response. What I will say is if they keep asking, then I'll say, well, look, you don't really have to agree with me. I'm explaining what I've done, and you don't have to agree with it. If you don't like it, then doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to change my mind, I think if it's done in the right manner, when it's big and flamboyant and it's someone running from distance and being loud and making a big song and dance that's clearly going over the line, then it needs to be dealt with differently. But
just on that, Nick, who in New Zealand are the biggest pains in the arse when it comes to
go on.
getting in your face and saying, I mean, you must hear it all the time, I got the ball ref, or he's been doing it all day. Who are the ones that just from
I got
minute
3 yellow
one,
cards for running out from the goal box, which I thought Nick was quite pointed in his comments there. If you're being flamboyant and you're running from a long distance, that seemed like directed at somebody on this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's really easy to pick on goalkeepers because they're generally wearing this different shirt. So they're really easy. You don't have to find the number.
I love picking on goalkeepers. Yeah.
No, look, I think it's not so much the players that are doing that. The players that I really enjoy refereeing are the players that I've had a bit of banter with. So I think, probably a recent example was last year on the National League. One of Bill Robinson's players, when he was captaining, I think, Hawke's Bay, quietly told me to fuck off. And it was quite quiet. It was 1-1, and I was like, that's fine. And then at about 75 minutes, he got subbed off. So I gently jogged over to him and told him to fuck off. And Bill heard it, and he came running in, and he just started laughing. He was like, you're great. And I was like, well, he told me to fuck off, so
yeah. And look, I think
fuck off.
Totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, are there? I mean, I played a stack load of games and never actually got sent off, and I did generally think towards the end of my career that I got away with murder on a few certain things. From a referee's point of view, do players kind of build up goodwill or credit? Particularly, it appears when you're starting off, there are a lot of young players when they first break into the league who are really mouthy and probably play to the edge of the laws and certainly pick up trouble from referees, and that can stick with them for a long time. And I guess if you're a little bit keep your head down like I did, you get to the end of your career and you can miss time a few tackles here and there, and you actually get a quiet word from the referee. Is that probably a fair reflection on how things happen?
Oh, look, I think you read into it. Like, football happens really fast. So generally, I don't know, from my perspective as a referee, I see a bad tackle. I don't see a face. I don't really see a person. I just see a bad tackle, and that's when I'll take action. I mean, look, I've had a couple good players that have been physios, and they've treated me. I've had a few injuries, Achilles and calf injuries. So I remember, one of my physios kicked someone, and I thought, you've been a good man. You haven't charged me for my physio treatment, so I let that one slide. But, generally not, Heidi. Like, it's sort of, it all happens so quickly, so you don't really have an opportunity to make a judgment like that.
Yeah, just on that, mate. So with the speed of the game and you're reacting to stuff, you've obviously played at some decent events, under 17 World Cups, under 20 World Cups. I mean, the Saudi leagues are pretty well supported league over there. Do you ever stop during the game and think, shit, I'm on TV or I'm at this FIFA event, it's fantastic? Or are you so focused in on the moment that you just running on adrenaline?
I think you get too focused. I mean, probably the biggest crowd was I got the opportunity to go referee in India as well on their professional league, which was awesome. And we were down in Kochi, and there was probably 80,000 people, in the game and watching the game, and the noise was amazing and the atmosphere was, electric. But you don't really get the opportunity to stop and absorb it until either before the match, when you're sort of walking around checking the pitch, or after the pitch. But in that particular game, we kind of got chased off, so there wasn't too much opportunity to enjoy it. But it's pretty. Those big crowds really make the game. I think that's one thing that COVID has brought back is like the crowds, even at the Northern Premier League now, have certainly got significantly bigger, and the atmosphere's got a lot better recently, which is good to see.
Did you actually get chased off? Has that happened to you before, where you've actually had to be covered and go off while things have been biffed?
There's always security to protect you, don't worry.
Yeah, really? What was that like? Like, that must have been crazy.
Yeah. You can have a look. I think it was match 33 in 2015 in the ISL. It's pretty.
Were you generally scared for your life, or did you know you'd be fine, or what?
Yeah, because we had Costa, Nick, come on, and he got, was it a flashbang grenade thrown down the tunnel?
Yeah.
And they had some snakes thrown at him as well.
Yeah. Oh, this was more the players running at me. So.
So I've got visions of those YouTube clips now where they're doing karate kicks and stuff. Is that what you were thinking at the time?
Oh. My assistant referees, Glenn and Mark, were there to protect me, so they had these big flag poles. So
you pulled rank. Boys.
Usually we do a question where the player has to choose his 5 mates in a bar brawl, but yours might just be your 2 ARs to look after you.
Yeah. You don't know what's in that flagpole, eh? I mean,
hey, we'll get on to 3 letters now, and this is where Heidi and I usually diverge on our support of this particular concept, but you've actually had quite a significant role in this development for football, and that is VAR. So you made history becoming the first New Zealander to be a VAR, and you've also come in for a little bit of stick, shall we say, in the A-League because of it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a good thing? We'll start off easy. Do you think it's a good thing for the game, VAR?
Look, I think technology is going to come into the game more and more. I think it's hard in football because football just continues to move. So, like, that's probably the hardest thing to implement is when do you stop the game, or how do you stop the game if play continues and there needs to be a decision made. Look, I look at it from my perspective as a referee, and I've made probably 3 or 4 really bad decisions that I can say. Like, I gave a goal in the Champions League a few years ago in Fiji when it hit the post, and I missed a blatant clear handball on the Sydney West Ham game. So from my perspective as a referee, if technology can help correct my mistake, that's only good for the game. So I think that's quite good. What we struggle with VAR is when to come in and when to overturn something, and I think that's been the challenge to get that bar right.
Yeah, on that, what would you think? So at the moment, we've got varying systems throughout the world. So one of those is, I think in the Premier League at the moment, the VAR kind of sits separate from everybody and is almost like a policeman and comes in and says, no, that was wrong. This is going to be the decision. In rugby, we see sometimes in competitions, the referee goes off, NFL, the referee goes off to the sideline and checks the video, having been prompted by someone up in the stands. So you're more of a facilitator in that example. So for you, as the VAR, do you want to be saying, hey guys, take another look at this. This is what I'm seeing. Can you go and satisfy yourself that this needs to be overruled? Or do you want to be the person that's saying, you got that wrong. I'm going to step in here and help you out, bud.
I mean, the concept of VAR in football is the referee is still always in charge. So the VAR should only be recommending a review, essentially. And that's all they're meant to be doing, unless it's a factual decision, like it's that the player's clearly offside or the foul was definitely in the penalty area. So those sorts of factual pieces where you don't have any judgment on, then you can go straight for the penalty because you gave it outside and it's clearly in. It's those decisions where is it a hold, is it not a hold, that it becomes really grey. And I think the concept is minimum interference, maximum benefit. So when everyone thinks it's a foul, then we should be coming in, and if it's not, then staying away.
I kind of align with you on this, Nick. Having played the game that many times, I would hate the game to be stopped all the time.
Don't try and
And this is what Jacob wants VAR for everything.
I agree with Nick. Let's get rid of no.
If I look at it and go, I'm like you. I think the referees are trained professionals, and I'm happy that every now and again they'll make a mistake. And I've played enough games. I have yet to come across a referee who has ever deliberately focused on one team or the other. And so I can honestly say that the refs are completely honest, they're unbiased, and they're out there doing their best. Now, the one thing
I'm sitting at home.
Jacob,
I'm sitting at home on my couch, Heidi, and I can see something which is obvious. And the referee, if he doesn't have the ability to get somebody to say, "Hey, go and double check this,"
I'm sorry, that's the beauty of sport, because if you had goal line technology, which I think would be the thing that would have saved Nick with the hitting the post, goal line technology to me is the only thing that should be in place. It's a bit like tennis with the balls in or out. Goal line technology says whether the ball crossed the line or not, and that is critical. Apart from that, if the ref sees a foul and he says that the guy was holding, that's what the ref saw, and that's exactly what happens. Are we going to start overturning throw-ins? Are we going to? It leads to, I think, what Nick's saying is, it leads to interference. I'd much rather, even with the offsides, the AR's there to make a call on offside. They're trained, they've had years of experience. If they get it wrong every now and again, that is what you live with when you play the sport. That's what the beauty of sport is.
Should the offside rule be updated, Nick, on the basis of VAR? Because at the moment we're seeing like some ridiculous calls, and I feel like that daylight rule, for example, fits VAR and is something that we can implement now to get offsides in a much more clearer way.
Look. The law on offside is written to be interpreted at community football or northern.
That's a problem, isn't
football.
It?
And then you bring in this like VAR thing that can draw a line, a three-dimensional line, which can take ages to place from being a VAR. That's
really?
what it takes.
Well, sod the rule. Let's go into that. How do you draw the line?
Well, you have this really, really quickly. You have an X, Y, and a Z line. So you have to plant that. Then you have to plant this like through the body of the player. And then this in case they're leaning like that, because this is the line coming up. That's, it's not very
you've
fun.
Got to find three. So is that why sometimes it takes so long? Because you are literally the guy in the box putting these three axes together to try and figure out where the line is for the offside.
I'm yelling at the guy from Hawkeye to do it, and then he does it wrong, and then I tell him to do it again and again.
So
what
would
be wrong?
Yeah,
that'd be difficult for players like Mark and myself with larger noses, because we'd be, getting the line.
It's the big noses.
Yeah, exactly. We'd be leaning one way, and it would be, it'd be hard.
Doesn't it make more sense then? Aren't the players all wearing sensors anyway? Like, aren't they all doing those GPS trackers and stuff like that? Wouldn't you just be able to track the field and its length, and just who was further back south or southeast, depending on what they were when that moment in time
but
happened?
it's not three-dimensional, I think, is the challenge, and it's when they're when the back foot or something is the keeping the player on, or the attacker's leaning and his head's the offside, the furthest point forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I think you mentioned right at the start the whole passion about football, and I think that the VAR is a passion killer. Like, you score a goal, the crowd. I mean, I was at the Phoenix Melbourne City match, and Steinman tapped it in, and we all celebrate like crazy, and we're 1-0 up, and then we spend about 3 minutes checking VAR, and then it gets cancelled, and then it's just kind of like a ugh.
But he was offside, so I mean,
but
I'm okay with that.
If the ref and the AR go, it's a goal, then that should just be a goal.
Do you know what's hilarious, Heidi? Is that we the producer on the Sky for Sky, he actually brought up the goal and was like, "Look, Matty Steinman's done a wonderful job. I'm going to cap off this little highlights package with Matty Steinman scoring a goal," and it was offside. So I think even when you've got the benefit of video, Nick, it's not always the right thing to do. Hey, just really quickly.
That was at Eden Park, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah. That was the one where the Hawkeye guy was taking ages.
Yeah, like, so I told you it took ages. Yeah. I had to drink about 6 or 7 more beers just to get over that.
Yes. Yeah, so what happened there? So he's not putting the axis on properly, and that's literally the whole thing.
Didn't drop them right, and in the end, I kind of just could see, because he was quite clearly offside after the touch off Hooper's backside. You could see that he was offside once you determined that it did touch Hooper, and then I was like, "Oh, mate, don't worry about the lines; it's offside."
So, how many people are in the booth or the bunker or wherever the hell it is? Are you? So you're going to Sky? Let's actually go with that. Where are you first?
So me, in the Phoenix, I'm always in the stadium. In Australia, it's in a bunker, so everything's streamed back to Sydney.
There's a bunch of screens up in front of you, like showing the different angles, and you've got.
So there's a Hawkeye operator, so he kind of controls all the feed from the camera. So he'll flick 4 camera angles over to me. You have sort of like a live screen up the top, and then a replay screen down the bottom. So the replay screen is a 3-second delay from the main screen, so you can kind of go, "Oh yeah, that's a foul. Oof, looks red or whatever," and then keep replaying it on that replay screen.
I felt like I was there. I felt like I was there with that reaction. Oh, that's a bad tackle. Okay, Nick, if we were handing you $1 billion right now and said, Nick, this is what we need. We need a VAR. You've never heard of it or seen it before. What would you be doing differently from what you do have now? Like, how would you set it up so that it worked better or quicker or made it less stressful for you?
Oh, look, I think it's just where you draw the line. I mean, everything is grey. Lots of decisions are grey, and I always say, like when I'm refereeing, it's like, well, only ever 50% of the people are pissed off with me at one time, because it's only 11 players that are going, it's when all those 22 players can objectively see it as a problem that I think you should be getting involved. And like these decisions happen once or twice a year, I think, to top referees, where you make a really bad decision. I think I remember, Spoons, you were playing for Team Wellington against the Wanderers, and I gave a penalty, and then all the players ran at me, and I could tell by the reaction of the players that it was a legitimate decision. I gave a handball, and it had hit the attacker's hand, and I gave a penalty. And then I sort of looked at my assistant referee, and he kind of cocked his flag the other way, and I was like, oh, sorry, because it's just a hand.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to distinguish a hand from an attacker or a defender, and I thought it was the wrong hand. So then I changed the decision. But I mean,
but your AR saved you there, not VAR.
Oh, don't start. But what about the ones where
they're all assistants, mate.
So in that situation with the AR involved, you only got 2 sets of eyeballs. For me, there's the ones where you make a call and you get it wrong that need to be corrected because it's just a human error. There's also the ones that are missed, and I think those are the ones that we see at home. So it's that third person, the TV, where you've either got the live shot or you've got a replay, and it's like, oh, actually, that probably was a foul, for example. That for me is the stuff that I'd like to see corrected. And as you said, Nick, if it gets the right decision, I think that for me is a justification of VAR. However, we spend a lot of time on that. And for my 2 cents, I reckon you have a situation where the VAR is somebody that simply checks the referee and then says, hey, mate, go have a second look at this. Satisfy yourself that this isn't a situation. And why the hell is the TV at halfway? We've got iPads. Why not just take the bloody thing out onto the field and just have it wherever he is? But anyway, that's fine. Jumping down a few notches here, we're going to go to the NRFL now. And I think it was last year was the first year. I think Adam Dickinson was actually the first person to get sin-binned, which is great chat. What he said wasn't actually that
not surprising.
So the sin bin rule was introduced, which is where a referee can give a yellow card and send the player off for 10 minutes because the player in question, as perceived by the referee, is giving them too much back chat. This is a question coming in from Andrew Vorman, and he says, has that sin bin rule been used enough?
It's a good question. So look, I think importantly, it's a temporary dismissal. It's not a sin bin. There's no green card. It's just the same yellow card, but you're meant to kind of go yellow card, 10 minutes. And then that 10 minutes is running time as well. So lots of coaches think it's, if the game stops and there's an injury, you need to add that time on to the 10 minutes. So it might become 10 and a half. I think that's important to get out there. FIFA have basically said you can use temporary dismissals for anything you want. We've chosen to use them for dissent. Look, personally, I don't really think it's a necessary tool, but where I have found it work well is when, a player commits a bad tackle, a reckless tackle, you show him a yellow card, he says something that's quite big and big in disagreement and loud. And this is a situation where most referees would never show a second yellow card for dissent and send the player off. So I think it kind of gives you a middle ground in that regard, to kind of give the player a bit of a time to cool off. Is it being used a lot? I haven't used it this year in probably 5-6 games. I don't think I haven't heard about it being used too much. I think when it does get used early in a match, it can set a bad precedent for the match, and then every time someone says something, then they expect a sin bin or a temporary dismissal.
As a great arbiters of fairness.
Yeah, it's sort of because you set a benchmark essentially for that particular match. Look, yeah, as I say, I haven't used it. I don't think it's been used too much this year. We've rolled it down to the first division as well. So
I think the point that people from the outside looking in, so fans or family members, or in this case, a journalist, when they come along to the games, and this is probably where it differs from rugby, Mark, is that football, I think there's a lot of value in it, like being a lot more passionate, as we've called it tonight, which is where there's a lot more interaction between the players, let's say in terms of chat, and then the referee and the players in terms of chat. I wouldn't want to see that removed from the game. Yes, I think we need to do a good job in protecting the referees, and so they can feel that they're empowered to act. And it might even be just given a little bit back, as you said, Nick. But I don't think that the sin bin rules, I've called it, should be used to police, let's say, bad language or aggression, which is, reasonable aggression, shall we say, on the field. I think that would be a real travesty if this rule is used to neutralize the game, shall we say, and make it into a sanitary version of the game that we now know.
I find it really interesting that you're so far backwards when it comes to the VAR. You're all about the VAR. This is the future. But these new rules where we're teaching kids to respect authority and making sure that we keep our language nice and clean. No. Back in the old school, we want people screaming and yelling with passion. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm on you with you on that, Mark, because I look at that yellow card and I'd say for a referee,
sticking it in every time tonight, isn't he, Mark? Yeah.
For a referee like Nick, who's very experienced, using a yellow card to control the game, he's already got the control of the match.
Yeah.
You'd find it as almost a disservice to yourself if you were having to use that to control the match, wouldn't you? Because your man management skills should be able to do it.
Usually I'll try and use a discussion or some personality. It's only when a player runs at me from distance that everyone can see, and then he's really loud.
Discrimination against goalkeepers.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that rule might be really good for young referees in the lower grades, where you're going to get a bunch of people who think they know better, or, geez, the over 35s matches I play now could really do with a yellow card for some of these muppets that think
on that,
it's the World Cup final.
On that,
let's still got it.
Yeah, exactly. On that, let's flip the responsibility back to the referee. And I appreciate that there's an experience, Nick, but is it the case, and I think this is something that we've noticed this year, that certain referees, they might not always be the best technically, but their man management means that the game is enjoyed more by the players. Is there a need to not educate, but to emphasize man management with younger referees?
Yep, definitely, and that's something like we've been really good over COVID as a referee cohort, having national-wide Zoom calls now to sort of look at particular things like that, and game management always comes into those decisions. So, whether what you need to do in a particular example in a different game might be different, depending on how the game is going. Do you need to use a caution, or can you use some personality or talk to the player? Particular situations of dissent, they're just dissent, when a player's smashing the ball down on the ground and having a little tantrum at the decision of the referee, then there's only one outcome there. But every other situation can be different.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate the emphasis on man management. It's something that I think you do really appreciate as a player. I've been trying to think about the best way to approach this, and I think I've come up with a decent way. So I don't know, are you on Twitter, Nick?
No. Actually I am, but I never post anything on Twitter. I mostly use it for score updates. And
you're a voyeur. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What do you call it? A voyeur.
You're going in a bad direction here, Jacob. Very bad direction.
So we put this out to the footballing community and said, behave yourselves. Some of those in the footballing community took a little bit of a liberty with that. And there was an incident, I think, with Steve Black in relation to a Melville game. I think it was Melville against Hamilton Wanderers. There's a wrongly given penalty, or the penalty was not taken properly. Yeah, I don't really want to get into the details of it. Yeah, exactly. They've been going on about it for weeks. And at any opportunity, they bring it up. And I think it's more targeted at the NRFL and the management of the game. But that really kind of speaks to a larger question, I think, here. So it's not necessarily when referees get it wrong, because everyone gets stuff wrong. This is more in relation to Scott Hales, who's the coach from Team Wellington, his question. And that is, how do referees reflect on a game? Because I think this is a point of contention with players, is that you understand that someone can make a mistake, but when you get referees that come back and continue, as you perceive it, to make mistakes, and I'm talking objectively here, that Sometimes, let's say Adam Dickinson just outmuscles somebody and constantly gets called a foul. So how do you guys reflect on games? Do you have access to platforms like Huddle?
Yep. So the Huddle platform has been really good on the NRFL. So every referee can access all the games that the clubs are putting up there. So I refereed your Forest Hill Birkenhead game. I reviewed the soft penalty that I gave. I also reviewed the send-off for the player.
How did you see it from that far away, by the way? Our angle at the club's horrible. Yeah.
Anyway. No, it was Birkenhead's camera because he had on that big pole,
We're working on things, Nick. We're working on things. Yeah, but so you reviewed big incidents in the game.
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think every referee will review the critical decisions because when you go out there, you don't want to be making a bad decision on a crucial call that is actually going to affect the outcome of the game, and that can mean anything. If it's a red card, it's going to affect the outcome of the game because it's now 10v11. Look, I think talking to the Stephen Black thing, things, people make mistakes, and I think he's publicly already said that himself. I spoke to him the next weekend, and he was gutted. He doesn't want to be doing that. I mean, he wants to be involved in football because he loves it. He doesn't want to, purposely make a decision that affects the outcome of the game. It's up to the league what they do with that decision. I think the decision has been, it stands, but ultimately you got to look at that and go, well, how did I get it wrong? Is probably the main thing for referees, and understanding that is important.
I think if you kind of open yourself up to correcting decisions or results after the game, then the question becomes, at which point do you stop doing that? So I think you need to accept that there's going to be some human error at that level, Heidi, at that level.
So you're saying you want VAR
is still
after
a
the
good
match
thing at the professional level, Heidi.
So 3 days after the match, you want VAR to go over the
no,
and then change the result.
Mark, can we mute him?
It is possible, but I'm enjoying the niggle. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. So you obviously get the chance to review local games on the Huddle platform. A-League games are played on TV, as we all know. So do you sit down and record that and then watch it back later, or do you have another angle that you look at for certain things?
No, I mean, the good thing about the A-League is I can clip everything straight off from the VAR room. So if there's something that's happened in the game, I'll normally take a hard drive straight down and we'll review it immediately after the game with the referee. Same with the Premiership. I'll be recording that on Sky and going back and looking at it, because ultimately it's not, you want to confirm that you got it right. If you didn't get it right, you want to understand why you didn't. And that's probably because of where you're standing or something.
Is that awkward? Being in a room with 3 other guys that are kind of semi-responsible, but you're the person ultimately responsible, and then you've got an assessor saying, kind of, you fucked up a little bit there?
Yeah. What, in the A-League context or?
Any context, really, when you're kind of sitting there and you're looking at something back and you're like, shit.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to be getting it wrong. I mean, the aim is to be getting it right. So, there's other platforms that referees have to complete on the Premiership as well. We all have to do self-assessments after the game to sort of drive that self-reflection immediately as well. There's, I suppose, control mechanisms. There's assessors there watching us to coach us and give us marks as well.
What about from players and let's say coaches in this example? Because we've always had a chat after the game, usually over a beer, even when you didn't send Jordan Vale off in the Chatham Cup quarterfinal.
I was waiting.
But I think it's important to have that sort of dialogue. So is that something that you actively engage with?
Yep. Yeah. And if the conversation in the club room after is fun and banter and jovial, then I'll always be up for a conversation about any decision, and I always explain what I see. Everyone's got a different viewpoint. It doesn't mean mine's right, but it's sort of, well, we can discuss why I did something. I didn't send off Jordan Vale because it was on halfway and it was quite wide, and I thought you had a lot of work to do for it to be a promising attack. So, and that's
what I'm pretty sure what I said. Nick. It was a second yellow card. Anyway, last question.
So I can't remember who this comes from. I think it's Martin Sims on Twitter. What, if any, of the laws would you like to see changed? So there's got to be something that niggles you at the moment that you feel gutted that you have to do. What would you change?
Yeah, look, I think that's a really interesting question, and the laws change every year. The laws change because players and coaches adapt, and the game changes. So I'm quite happy the recent changes where they've downgraded the red cards for dogso and the triple punishment stuff. I thought that was quite a good change. I think the handball law becomes overly complicated, but I think the change that they've recently made, where if it hits an attacker's hand in the attacking sort of phase, which is defined as immediately before a goal, 3 or 4 passes before a goal, then it's going to be handball. So I think that clarifies it a bit. I would kind of like them to make it more simple, but I think
how so?
If they made, if the ball hit the hand, but then I think players would adapt to kick the ball at the hand of defenders, for example, to win.
I've seen do that before. Yeah. So
no. So look, I think it's all. I'm pretty happy with most of the laws. I think we can get a little bit pedantic. I'd like them to kind of relax undergarments and things like that a little bit more, because that just causes angst, I think, between players and referees pre-match.
It's a niggle, man, especially when you're going over that sort of stuff and
especially at amateur kind of levels, and you're in your away kit and you normally have black shorts on and you got white shorts on and you got black undergarments, and it's like, well,
doesn't really matter.
Not really.
Spoons, you've thrown that tough question at Nick. Spoons, what would you like to see demolished, taken away, abolished from the rule book?
I've kind of become used to commenting on stuff, so just explaining bits and pieces. Look, there's one thing that I don't think it's called enough, particularly in this country, and that is penalties. When a attacker's gone into the box and they're not necessarily going towards goal, but then a defender does something stupid, and there's a hesitancy to give a free kick or a penalty. And I just don't think we punish dumb defending enough in this country, because that kind of honesty thing. Oh, he was only going for the ball. He's a good dude, and you could see that he wasn't genuinely trying to foul the guy. Well, it's like it doesn't matter. Like, if he's dumb enough
to... career? Is it my career?
Well, I don't know. Don't want to say anything. Yeah. But that's something that's frustrated me. And we got a call the other day, and it was like a thank you, about time. Like, the guy doesn't need to make a challenge. So I think that's something that could be improved. That's not really the rules of the game. It's more interpretation. Handball. I think handball probably needs to be a bit simplified. And that for me is something that if it's away from the body, like this, making yourself unnaturally bigger, I don't get that. I know what it's trying to get to, but I think if it's away from your body, it hits you kind of lower arm, dead set, absolutely dead set. I don't know how to simplify it, but you've got the bits where like the hand's up above the face, and it's like, is that handball? It's a bit too complicated for me at the moment.
Well, they've added so much commentary around it. It's like, well, if it hits the body first and the arm is down, then it's not handball.
Like that Ulysses Defila penalty the other day, right? Like, with no one's around him, the ball's slipped and skidded away from him, hits his chest and then his arm, gets given a penalty. Technically, it's not actually a penalty, which took a little bit of figuring out in the Sky studio, and ultimately Chris Kerr came to our rescue, which was great. Heidi, anything from you, mate?
Oh, on changing the game, I think for me personally on that one, the taking quick free kicks has always been a real pain in the ass. I think some referees are really good with the advantage. It doesn't have to be on the right spot. The ball could even be moving a little bit. I'm like, if the attacking team is attacking and we get fouled, we should just either be able to carry on or quickly just touch the ball and away we go.
So like hockey, within 10 metres kind of thing. If it's within 10 metres of the foul, then
yeah, pretty much. And I think it's really frustrating when, particularly when you're playing a side that really is kind of putting 10 behind the ball and making those types of fouls and playing on the edge of the law, that when you do kind of stretch them, you get called back and then the ref says, no, take it back to the spot. You're like, bugger, they've got 10 behind the ball again. The rest of the rules, to me, again, I'm completely happy with the referee's interpretation. That's what he's there for. So, sorry, Jacob. Old school rules.
Jesus Christ.
One last question for you from me, Nick. That Manukau City versus North Shore game last year, was that the worst game you've ever had to referee?
Yeah, to be honest, not enjoyable. Like, it was enjoyable for 90 minutes. The last 3 minutes was not very enjoyable. Because
how many did you send off? Let's go over what happened really quickly.
I don't know, 7 something.
7. Jesus.
So Manukau only had 5 players left on the field because I think someone else was already in the sin bin.
I'd already Sonny Issa, and I think someone was in the sin bin, or he might have just come back. But a couple of those send-offs were subs. Ultimately they didn't have enough players to continue. It was
and it's
just
90 minutes, right? That's when the fight. So there's a fight that broke out. There was a scrap between a number of different people. I think a reserve goalkeeper got sent off from memory. And you've basically just been handing out red cards for fun at that point based on people's... Yeah, so that must suck, mate. You just kind of sitting there thinking, it's the 90th minute. What the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I just walked off. I had both the captains in my referee's room after, and I just sort of said, "Well, this is not football." Bruce Holloway was following me, so he was commed up as well. So he had another referee communication set, so he could hear a lot of the conversation. The game was really good for 90 minutes, and it just turned a little bit pear-shaped towards the end. But I mean, my main observation was that's not what football's about, and we need to not have situations like that.
It kind of is when you're playing FIFA and you're behind by so much and you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to slide tackle the goalkeeper over and over again until you get everyone sent off. And there's that sort of badge of honour where you didn't lose the game but you couldn't continue because...
match was abandoned.
Never knew it happened in real life, though. Never knew it happened in real life.
Well, there you go. I did. On the flip side, Nick, what's been the most memorable match? Like some of the places you've gone to, stadiums, players that you've been refereeing. Which one stands out for you where you thought this refereeing journey has all been worthwhile?
Oh, look, I think traveling around the world, so getting that opportunity to referee at big tournaments is awesome. I think you questioned before about when you do you feel the moment. I can recall a few games. My first game in Chile was probably really memorable because it was my first game as a referee at a FIFA tournament. Refereeing in front of big crowds, probably that 80,000 in India was pretty special. Despite it ending pretty...
it was memorable for a number of reasons.
No, look, I think and you build up this camaraderie with these guys that you travel with as well. So it's always, that's special. So
the team element exists for you guys as much as it does for the players, which is great. Well, you have to be neutral because you still are refereeing A-League, or hopefully will be next year. I mean, I don't know what's going to go on with the Phoenix being based in New Zealand or in Australia. That's still to be foreseen. So, Hyde, we are 10 minutes away from kickoff now. It'll be Western United against Brisbane Roar, deciding who the Phoenix play on Saturday. Are you watching, first of all?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Heidi?
Sorry, I thought they were playing Melbourne City tonight, mate. Western United, Melbourne City.
Is it Melbourne City?
Yeah.
Have I absolutely? Oh, we're playing Brisbane. Yeah, great, cool. So it's either Brisbane Roar or Western United that we're playing on Saturday. You're playing Melbourne City tonight. Thank you very much for the correction.
You need it. You need it all the time. That's what I'm here.
That's why I have a little box. Questions and not the other way around.
That's why I have a little box up here just to make sure we stay on the straight and narrow.
Brilliant. So Heidi, thoughts on what will happen off the back of that?
Okay, I am really hopeful that the Phoenix will have had a good hard look at themselves after the last game against Newcastle, and I'm really expecting, I guess now with the news that Hooper and Payne are out, they'll have been able to, I guess, make their game plan pretty damn early on how they're going to play this. They'll have already picked the side. They'll be looking for some kind of response after last week. I think they've got it in them, and I really hope that we see something. I actually was quite inspired by the news today when I saw the UFC fighters all camping down, sleeping on mattresses inside the gym for their 5 weeks before they go to, the Middle East to do their fights. And I think maybe that's the mentality the Phoenix now have to have. They've had a great season, but it's now time to actually, like I said, they're only 3 games from winning this whole thing now.
Absolutely. And I reckon that's...
So I'm all fired up.
That's the best bit for them. And the interesting thing is they'll be probably playing against a back 5/back 3. So that Achilles heel has been identified by a lot of armchair experts as something that will have to be dealt with by the Phoenix. So finally, though, let's make sure that we acknowledge the time that Nick has given us this evening. Thank you very much for putting up with us and all of our annoying questions. It is really appreciated. And as I said, there's a real feeling there that I don't think players and coaches understood what was happening at the referee's end, and seems to be this year in particular that frustration was starting to boil over. So thank you very much this evening, Nick.
Well, thanks guys. Great to be here and great to share some insights into refereeing. It's a fantastic journey. Heidi, you could do it.
He hasn't got the pace, mate. He hasn't got the pace anymore.
You don't.
I would happily send off Spoonley. Absolutely.
I don't think many of us have. So.
Oh, actually, you sent me off for my last National League game.
Yeah, you didn't even bring it up.
Oh, that's because it was Jetty Edge is responsible for that. Don't even get me started.
It's because it was well deserved.
Well, it was. It was pretty clear.
That's coming from an Auckland City player.
Yeah, and then Ramon decided not to play me from that point on, which is a completely another story. Anyway, Mark and Heidi, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate the chats that we do have during COVID and how everyone's probably getting really bored of staying at home at the moment. So let's hope we get down to level 2. 6 cases today. Only good news. So Heidi, last word.
Go the Phoenix.
Go the Phoenix. Mark, last word.
Go the Phoenix.
Spoon's last word. Go the Phoenix. Thank you very much, everybody.